let's talk about grass today. A special grass, which is Breath of the Wild grass. And we're going to see that this grass is really, really complex, a lot more than you think. And talk about how to do this. Not in specific engines, but what are the choices that have been made. And how to get this really beautiful looking and also very performant grass. So if you're here, you're probably a game developer, you're probably interested in stylized graphics. Maybe you're doing an environment, nature environment with some grass. And you notice that, okay, grass is amazing because it gives a very beautiful looking to your field, to your environments, but it's quickly expensive. It's heavy on performance, and at the beginning you just put a little, and then you think that, okay, I need more because, yeah, this is good looking, I want a better looking for the game, and you put more and more, and then your FPS drops. So we are going to see what Nintendo did, how did they do that, because generally when you're doing some stylized graphics, you have to find a good balance between the looking and the performance. And generally when you have more good looking things, you have to sacrifice some performances, and the reverse is true. By the way, sorry for my bad English, I'm not a native speaker, anyway. But Nintendo, they really succeed making both very beautiful, very, very beautiful, I mean, Breath of the Wild grass is really beautiful, and very performant grass. Like, they didn't sacrifice things, they really have both. How did they do that? We're going to see that today. So first of all, as you can see, like over there, with the palm tree just above the head of Link, like, the grass is still rendering. But it's really far. That's the first thing that is amazing, that like Breath of the Wild has a very nice grass coverage. It's really dense, really rich, generous, but also like the distance rendering is pretty far, because it's optimized, of course. So point number one, card mesh. Is card mesh good for grass? And the answer is no, it's not good, and I'm going to explain why. So as you can see here, the first thing that I noticed when I start studying Zelda grass is every blade is modeled. Every single blade is geometry based mesh. I mean, it's not a card mesh, it's not a flat rectangle where you apply texture on it, opacity texture. Everything is modeled. And I was surprised because, like, in common knowledge we are like, okay, high amount of trees is not good and low amount of trees is good. So let's go for card mesh, because card mesh, it's a basic rectangle, you have like 4, 6, 8 trees in it. I mean, if you want to have complex shape with card meshes crossing to each other, you have more, but basically you have less trees than just rendering every single blade, I mean, modeled every single blade for the grass. But that's not true. Trees, sometimes it's better to have more trees because opacity is expensive. So that's the first point. Card mesh are not good because it's actually more expensive than modeling every single blade, because the transparent surface, still rendering, but it's transparent, made by this type of technique, is actually expensive. I notice it in Unreal Engine, but I'm sure it's expensive everywhere, because in Zelda Breath of the Wild they used their own engine and they still went for this choice. So I'm sure in Unity as well. I haven't done tests in Unity, but I've done a lot of testing in Unreal with card mesh and bladed geometry grass. I tried to match the composition and density, and then I compared, and that's obvious. That's obvious. I got a lot more performance. Let's say not a lot, but consequent performance gain on this way of doing, which is Breath of the Wild 1. The second point I want to talk about, because I'm going to talk about the shape of the blade itself, the geometry, later. I mean, honestly, Zelda Breath of the Wild grass is amazing. It looks pretty simple at first, and a lot of developers, they try to reproduce it on some asset store and stuff in Unity or Unreal, but honestly, like for example here, here you have a very nice asset I own. It's really nice, and they kind of try to reproduce the Zelda Breath of the Wild way of doing grass. And here you have another one in Unreal, more based on optimization than looking, but they're really far from Zelda Breath of the Wild system, which is a system that is really more complex than the first look when you just look at the grass. Speaking about complexity, so point number 2, Zelda Breath of the Wild has a really interesting load system. It's really interesting because they actually use card mesh. So you will say, hey, you said card mesh is not good. So, but they're using card mesh. I show you here. For example, here the grass I have is single-bladed grass. But if you see on the right, it's card mesh. So I'm going to take a screenshot and show it to you on Paint. But I think you can already see it. Here, 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 here. Anyway, you got it. Here. So the entire part here is card mesh. Here it's card mesh too. Here you have some card mesh as well. I mean, like, basically, single-bladed grass is here, in this area. So why did they do that? I'm going to show you on Paint and show you my amazing drawing skills. So basically, when you're close to the grass, the camera, as it's a third-person game, the camera is pretty high, and then you're going to see the grass on top. And if, I mean, you can really put card mesh for LOD if you see the top of the card mesh, because this is the weakness of a card mesh. When you are on top, you can see more the lines, and your geometry is really not beautiful. You can still bypass the problem by bending the mesh regarding the camera position, but yeah. But when you're like this, here, it's not a problem anymore. And the good thing is, you even don't need a lot of card mesh, because the card mesh is seen horizontally. You only need one or maybe max two in order to give this impression of grass density, grass presence. That is why in Zelda Breath of the Wild you have a very far grass distance, because it's not bladed anymore, it's using card mesh, but only very, very few card mesh. If you were using card mesh here, I'm going to draw card mesh on top view. You would need this, and maybe this, and maybe that, and maybe this, and that amount of card mesh to give a really good impression of density. But when you're at this distance, you only need to do, I mean, I tested it. Only to do this, and maybe this, and that's it. Or maybe like this, and this. And that's it. With this way of doing card mesh from top view, of course, like, you can give a very good impression of grass at very far distance. But if you were at very close distance and using this, it will be more expensive than single blade. When you're here it's better to use single blade, like this. And when you're here, it's better to use card mesh. Sorry, it makes no sense what I'm doing, but let's say this is a card mesh because it has a rectangle in it. Anyway, and not by a lot, because I've been doing the testing, and when you're doing this thing, you gain just a little performance, because it's not much more performant than blades, because card mesh, you know, you have this opacity stuff and it's expensive, but still a little more, and they really optimized things at the perfection, at maximum. That's amazing. And now it's raining in Zelda, so I cannot really show you anything. Let's wait here next to the fire, and let's go to the third topic, which is the composition. This is Blender, and you have like a basic bladed grass, and it's pretty dense because it has a lot of geometry. Actually, you don't need that much geometry, but like in Zelda Breath of the Wild, like, all the blades are crossing to each other, which gives a really good impression of coverage, density. For a very geometry-speaking topic, you really need to do something like this. So here, it's more crossing to each other, and if you compare this to this one, here it's really flat. I mean, like, it's really straight to the top, and overall, it's not optimized. This is an example, of course. It's not the mesh I'm using. This is the mesh I found from one of the assets I showed you earlier. This one is the Unreal Engine one. But in Zelda Breath of the Wild, they did 2 trees mesh. So if I hide this and rotate like this, okay, that's it, honestly. Yes, and yes. Alright, so this is basically the mesh in Zelda Breath of the Wild. It's a little bit bended like this, but not too much. This is more like this, and here it is. This is what the Breath of the Wild grass. Okay. So what I can tell you about the composition is, don't go for a very dense composition. It's better to have not so many blades, and then you can raise the density in your engine than doing the reverse. For example, like you do like this, and okay, and then like this, and maybe you scale it. I mean, it's really rough. It's just for the video. Again, nothing polished. But it's better to have like maybe 7-10 blades, make a nice composition, try to have kind of circle coverage, and then you raise the density when you are in the engine. Let's go back to Zelda. I'm going to show you for the composition. By the way, that's my very first video, so forgive me if it's a bit long and the explanations are not really clear, or the rhythm of the video is not really great. Hope I'm going to improve. Honestly, I didn't plan to make the video, but because I was really amazed again and again and again by the things I was discovering on this, I was like, okay, I have to share this. So here is the shape of the blades. Two twists. Sometimes they're kind of bended, sometimes they're pretty straightforward. And that's much. It's not that much. I'm going to talk about this later. But for the geometry itself, yeah, that's it. Additional features. Zelda BOTW has this really nice how can I pronounce this? Translucency, whatever. So another cool thing. Let's say it's the point number 4. They use different grass. So for example, you have the bladed one, and the LOD is the card mesh here, and then you have a single twist blade used for kind of a grand coverage, as you can see here. Maybe I can use this. Yay! Okay, so here is the little, very cute little grass. This is triangles, basically. This is a very simplified version of the grass you saw over there. And yeah, they have a second grass, just for little coverage, and they use this grass a lot for rock coverage. So if I can go to this rock, maybe we can see some grass in it. Not this time. I mean, little here, it was in another area. But yeah, this is really a grass that they use to hide the emptiness of the ground, if I can say. So this is the grass number 2, and now I discover a third grass, and this one is really interesting. I think it's here. Now I have my favorite spot. It's over there. Yeah. So look at this. I'm going to show you on paint because this is a grass that is it's running away. That's really funny. So this is this grass, right? Let's take this. Okay, here. And this grass is not like the two previous I mentioned before. This grass is really intriguing. Sorry, French. How can I say this? Mysterious. Let's say mysterious. Okay. I show you. Because when I'm going closer, the grass is disappearing. Look. Here you have the grass, and here you don't have it anymore. It's just like, okay, I'm going home. I don't want to see you. Why? Why that? It should be the opposite. Why that? That's really interesting, really mysterious. So I'm going to make a close-up here, if I can say, oh, you know what, let's use this. It's not here anymore. So, sorry. Let's go to bed, and let's come back at noon, because I need luminosity. This is really interesting. Like, why did they do that? I mean, I have an idea. So we're going to see, but like, just right now I want to show you, this is a complete different grass. This is an opacity grass, but it's not card mesh. I said opacity because the shape is rounded. Yes, here it is. So it's really hard to see, forgive me. But it's not a tip. I mean, the tip is round shaped. Oh, this is good spot now because there is a shadow. And I think they use this to give an impression of like a coverage, surface coverage, like kind of a carpet. But because the grass itself is not really beautiful, or it's really cheap geometry, and I don't know, they decided to do not make it visible. I mean, like, the color is changing now. It's the color of the ground, and you cannot really see it, even when I'm putting the camera like this. But when I'm going away, it's getting back to this grass color. I mean, more. You can see it. Yeah, look. It's visible, and when I zoom, it's not... Oh, yeah, it's not visible anymore. I mean, less. And when I'm getting closer, he's getting... Look at this one. He's running away. Come back. So you can see this round shape on the top. He's running away. That's really... I won't say weird, because this is Nintendo. If they do that, they have a very specific reason. They're a really smart guy, really smart people. So yeah, I wanted to show you this cool thing. I don't have an answer to give you, but just keep this in mind, and just think like, okay, there are people doing this. There are people out there rendering grass when you're far, but when you're close, the grass disappears, even if it's a cheap grass. Okay, why not? And now let's jump into the last point, which is quite amazing. I discovered this not so long time ago. I think it was 2 or 3 days ago. first I was like, okay, this bladed grass has different loads. Oh, I forgot to mention actually. It's really dense here. When I'm doing this, it's not really dense, but when I'm coming closer, it's more dense, more and more. And when I'm doing like this, it's super, super dense. And if you can see on the bottom left, look at this. I'm going to make a screenshot. Look at this. This is really interesting. This grass, the two tips you can see, it's actually one blade. But when I put the camera closer, the blade kind of divided to itself, making two blades. Why? I mean, if you want to make a more dense grass, you just put a new LOD with more geometry, and you don't have to put like this very close grass blades, two blades. Like there is no meaning because you have not much more density impression. So the only answer I found is they have sorry for the cloud. Let's do some how can I say this in English? Let's say exercise, workout. Okay. It's really complex, it's really hard to explain, and it's getting late, so I'm going to sleep. If you see closely, you can see the blades are popping. And it's one blade and here and there popping, slowly and slowly. But this is the answer I got for this divided blade. But if you come closer, I mean, like, you cannot make the popping stuff anymore because you're so close to the camera that the player would notice. And maybe that's why they came up with this divided two blades. I mean, one blade divided into two blades, but they're very close to each other. So it gives some a little coverage impression, but not too much. But they couldn't just like added a lot more blade just because you're next to it, because it would be very obvious. But when you're playing and you don't pay attention, you have a lot of blades popping, but you don't know. I mean, I'm amazed how I could miss all of this kind of stuff in Breath of the Wild. For example, like the flowers, they don't have stem. I mean, you have some flowers with stem, but they're little flowers. It's just the top of them, but you don't notice it. Like, it's a lot of things like this in Breath of the Wild. Like, they have really a very nice balance to hide things, to save some performance, but you never notice them. All of that to say, and this is what I discovered not so long time ago, this grass is only one single blade. It's not a composition of different blades, just putting into composition and then you put it with a foliage tool and stuff. No, this is only one blade, and it kind of do a Kagebushin, Naruto, I don't know, but it's only the same blade. And I'm going to explain why I believe this. If this cloud can let me show you the grass, please go away. So first of all, you have this popping grass. Like, the camera is close, you have a lot of grass, and when I put the camera like farther, I mean, like, you can see the card mesh coming from the ground. It's really amazing. Look at this. The grass is popping. But it's only single blades popping here and there. And with a random offset, like, of the camera position. So it's not just popping where it's the... I mean, generally when you're culling things, it's about a distance. So, like, the closest things will be the first things to appear when they're culled. But that's not the case. Grass is popping here and there, and it's always a single blade. So this is the first thing that I was like, maybe it's one single blade and they did kind of like a procedural multiplying generation, whatever. And the second thing is, look at this. This is it's just a place with no grass, but it's really, really, really interesting. Because, yeah, it's pretty hard to find a place like this in Zelda Breath of the Wild, because this is a hole, actually. And this hole tells a lot of how they did their grass, because if you look closely, you can see all the blades on the edges, on the edge, are small and getting smaller. Sorry, I'm back. Weather issue. So if you see here, when you come closer to the area with no grass, the blades are getting smaller, as it was a noise mask or just a mask. And you have a smooth transition, but the transition is just deforming the mesh. And the third thing that makes me think it's kind of mesh-generated grass and only one mesh, one single blade, is when you look at this, you will not be able to see it in the video because it's really hard to see, but you have no small blades. Not a single small blade in area where there are a lot of grass. And this is logic because, I mean, like here the grass has almost the same length, I mean, a z offset, and here there is no single little blade, but you have single blades, little blades, sorry, on edges like this, which is logical because when you have a composition of grass, there is no meaning to put a little blade on the middle of it because it will be hidden by other meshes and it's a waste of geometry. So you better want to put little blades outside on edges or where there is no grass to make the transition, and because it will not be hidden, it will be in front of the bigger blades and not behind, which is again something really smart, because even if you don't save raw performance, direct performance thanks to this, you can afford to reduce the density of grass because I mean, like, you save the little blades, you only render them on edges. And that's why I really believe that Zelda Breath of the Wild is only a single mesh, only one single blade that is modified on the Z offset, on the Y and X to make it a little bit larger, and then the Z offset is reduced when you approach on edges where there are not grass anymore through a mask, and when you have very dense grass, it's only big blades because the little ones will be useless and waste performance, waste just geometry. And this is amazing. This is really amazing. For now, I don't know how to do that in Unreal or Unity because I'm not a programmer and I'm not very comfortable with environment coding stuff, but I tried to do it with a single blade and I just raised the density of the grass, but generally you're pretty limited, especially for Unreal, for example, because you have a limitation for density, and if you want to have a very dense grass, you will be limited. So this method has to be done through codes, programming, but this is really good, really good. It doesn't save performance directly, but it saves performance indirectly through the composition of the grass and how it gives this coverage impression. I couldn't imagine I would discover so many things like this with a very simple grass like this. I mean, like, it looks simple, but it's not. So many little techniques here and there. For example, an additional feature is when you're doing the camera like this, the grass is changing the rotation in order to do not show a very straight geometry, because if the geometry is straight down, you cannot see it. So there is geometry rendered, but it's not covering anything, like if you're looking at a card mesh on top view. But here it's just, yeah, bending a little to just always be shown. It's tons of things like this, but these methods are well known. I mean, they're used in the assets you can buy here and there, Unity, Unreal, but it's a really nice piece of tech, technology. And I'm sure I'm going to discover a lot of more things, but really, like, single blades, geometry, very smart LOD system, different, let me see my notes, different type of grass, with this very weird grass disappearing when you come closer. And finally, this is only one blade that is Kagebushin, and then you change a little bit the size and stuff. Really cool, really cool. I think this video is enough long. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you found this interesting. I really hope I kind of show you some stuff that you didn't know, and you pretty appreciate the content. It's my very first video, and you know, I'm motivated to do more videos, and I will be very happy if you just support me by just subscribing and whatever YouTube asks. I'm not a YouTuber guy, but I don't know how this whole things work, but yeah, give a subscribe. It will be really helpful and keep me motivated. And please let me know in the comments, what do you think? Did you enjoy this? Did you discover things that I didn't? Or just if I said a mistake or an error or whatever. Let me know, and yeah, see you around, and thank you very much for watching this video. Bye bye.